Present.
Vice Mayor Landry,
Present.
Commissioner Parsons,
Here.
Commissioner Warren,
Here.
Commissioner Vasquez is absent. We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocation.
Dear Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this day that you've given us. A nice and warm and beautiful day, and we're grateful that we can be here to conduct the city's business, and we just ask that you will give this board wisdom as we make decisions for our community, and go with us and be with all of our staff and all the people in our community, and guide us and keep us safe. And we ask these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you, Ron. Item number 1, awards, proclamations, and presentations. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 2, approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 3, the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special meeting minutes from April 16th, 2005, and the regular meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2025.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 4, items from citizens. Are there any items from citizens today? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, items from groups. Are there any items from groups today? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 6, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Parson. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 7, ordinance number 4634, joint city-county agreement for GIS services.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, historically, the county GIS department has spent a good amount of time performing work that is more city-related than county-related. They assist the PD with the Spillman mapping on the program they use for all the call database and everything. They assist dispatch, which is already a joint thing, and they assist the building department quite regularly in addressing things and getting boundary descriptions. And so it's been discussed in the past, making the GIS position for the county a joint position so that we could pay our fair share, but get allocated our fair time using it. So, before you is this ordinance. It's ordinance 4634. It's also the same document will go before, upon your approval, the same document will go before Seward County as resolution 25-09 on the 19th of this month, for their approval. If you have any questions, Scarlett's here with the budget. April Warden and Lisa with GIS have both showed up at the meeting.
So I know that we put a lot of burden on them, and you talked about maybe allocating a certain amount of time. Is there that provision actually in the agreement?
Yeah, the agreement actually has the provision that so much time will be allocated towards city stuff, city processes, and there's certain processes that do overlap and affect both the city and the county together jointly. So I know last week I probably called Lisa 6 or 7 times with different things.
I will say that I wasn't aware of this discussion when we wrote the 2025 budget, but we do have a little bit of a cushion in the general where we can accommodate it. And I do feel from my interaction with Lisa, April, and Keith that it is warranted and needed to share this employee. She does a lot of good work for us and very proactive work, and we look forward to continuing that relationship.
At this time, as we're continuing to have conversations with the different entities to create better interlocal agreements, this was a budget item that we weren't giving to the county beforehand. Are we making sure that all the other entities are also being held to the same standard as we move forward and try to formalize all of our agreements?
Yes, I believe so. I know that the intent was to make sure that it was written into the budget, but that information did not get to me when I was doing that last year from the previous administrator. But I do feel like April and I have a solid relationship, and we are aware of everything now, and it has surfaced, so.
And with those conversations, though, are we also having the conversation as we move forward on this part, the amount that they continue to raise prices on every other service that the city uses as well, which includes prisoners, meals, landfill. I know there was a time they even tried to exclude the city from that rate increase, but they've gone ahead and moved forward with it. So it does feel like we do take quite a bit of that burden, with little consideration to us at times.
And I understand that. I think April and I have not met to discuss anything regarding the landfill or the jail this year so far, but we're getting ready to do the communications budget here in the next month or so, so we can sit down and have a conversation about that for sure.
As far as this one goes, I think it's, you know, it's reasonable and it's necessary. And, you know, I think it's a good thing that we get these things on paper. But, just like Jose said, you know, we probably ought to sit down and have a discussion about some of those other things as well.
Well, I was gonna say, this is kind of a different deal than those other deals, I think. I think this is primarily mapping. And I can see where a lot of it benefits the city, so I don't have a problem with this at all. We can have the conversations about the other deal, but this is kind of a deal
Yeah.
by itself.
Yeah.
And I understand the expense that, that goes into that, and I can see where a lot of it, I know it helps your department, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It also, like, I believe April spent a couple of weeks doing all the GIS switchover. I mean, Lisa spent a couple of weeks doing all the GIS switchover for the police department and stuff, so.
Yeah, but just from my experience in the business that I'm in, I know I've been in your office and we've had to call them for information, and we look at their site for stuff, so I think, I understand where a lot of what they do is for us, so.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance number 4634.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes.
And that
Thank you,
ordinance
Keith.
does give you the authority to sign off on the interlocal as well. So both of those will need to be executed.
Moving on to item number 8, ordinance number 4635, fireworks. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. As you're probably aware, back about mid-April, Governor Kelly signed into law Senate Bill 199 regulating use of and selling use of fireworks in the state of Kansas. Some information we received from the state fire marshal regarding this was the major changes to the fireworks laws are it changes the period during which seasonal fireworks can be sold. It extends that from 9 days to 18 days in the state of Kansas. So now Seasonal fireworks in the state are permitted to be June 20th through July 7th for the sale of fireworks. Seasonal fireworks stands are still permitted and inspected at the local level. It's not inspected by the Kansas State Fire Marshal's office. What the new law, probably the biggest thing the new law did was it created a new type of fireworks retail operation, and it's the permanent fireworks retailer. They'll be permitted to sell consumer fireworks year-round, and unlike the seasonals, they'll be required to be in a building that operates permanently with the requirements of NFPA 1124, the national standard, and the Kansas Fire Prevention Code. And then some of the other small things are, it says that all consumer fireworks sales have to be in person. You can't order them online and have them shipped to you. They have to be in person. Kansas law does not and still does not restrict when fireworks can be shot off during the year. The things that remain in place, you can't shoot them off at vehicles, from vehicles, under vehicles, within 100 feet of any place of institution like hospitals, nursing homes, or retail fireworks stands, or gas stations, fueling stations, things like that. So what that means to us as cities and counties is that the Kansas Fire Prevention Code still specifically grants authority to us to prohibit and regulate the sale and handling of fireworks within our boundaries. And we still have control over when they're sold and when they're discharged within the city. So with that information in hand, after this came out, we decided to be prudent to meet and review this goes into effect for the 2025 fireworks season. So we thought it'd be prudent to meet and review our ordinance that was currently on the books for the sale and discharge of fireworks. I wasn't present for those meetings myself, but I think the meeting consisted of city administration, law enforcement, fire department, building department. Am I missing anyone? Yeah. Pretty much covered everyone. They kind of went through the ordinance and basically made a few changes. Now, before I get into that, I'll point out to you, I placed the body of a memo in front of you. The ordinance that you have in front of you, Ordinance 4635 for your consideration tonight, it is correct as it is printed in your packet. The memo from Fire Marshal Regier, in paragraph 2 in the body of the memo, he has July 10th, that should be June 10th. And at the end of paragraph 3, it says July 24th, that should be June 24th. So I'll stress again, the ordinance that you have in front of you is correct. There was a correction to the memo, and I gave you a copy of that corrected memo for you to look at. Essentially, the four things that they touched on and decided to revise was to reduce the number of days for fireworks to be discharged down from 3 to 2. In our previous ordinance, it allowed for July 3rd, 4th, and 5th. The 5th was always put in there as kind of an idea for a rain day in case we had a thunderstorm that washed out the 4th of July. Essentially, this is going to reduce it back to July 3rd from 8 to 11 p.m. and July 4th from 8 to 12 p.m. with the caveat that if 4th of July falls on a Friday, as it does this year, then the 5th will be an allowable date to fire off to allow for the Saturday weekend celebrations, if that is clear enough that way. Seemed all right to me in there. They'll still be able to sell in Liberal. The dates to sell will still be June 27th through July 4th. Anyone wishing to obtain a license for a seasonal fireworks stand will need to fill out that permit and have it being considered by June 10th of the licensing year. That changes to allow both the building department and the fire department time to review the license before it's issued. The third change is there's a $2,500 license fee for the fireworks. And in the past, they've received different types of payments like checks. We got burned, we had checks returned on that. I think we're able to collect on them, but changes it to say that collected funds will be the method of payment, and they'll need to be either cashier's checks, cash.
Money order.
Or money
If the
orders.
bank allows a money order for $2,500, which is rare.
Okay.
We just want to make sure they're collected funds so that we don't have to chase after them later.
So that wording is changed in there. And then the fourth change is the public liability insurance for public display of fireworks. That's if somebody wishes to set up and put on a display for the public. Instead of $500,000 liability insurance, they'll now have to have $1 million of liability insurance. So there's not a lot of change to our ordinance as it sat last year. The only difference is instead of 3rd, 4th, and 5th for shooting off I think that will affect the public is just the 2 days to shoot them off. The dates of sale stay the same and all of that. So I guess I'd try to answer any questions that you have.
So one question I have, I mean, I'm okay definitely with the turning it down from 3 days down to 2. I guess one question I've got, and I'm sure that there are others that have this question, is the enforcement of the time frame on the shooting off of the fireworks, number one. And then number two, the size of the fireworks that are being sold and being shot off inside of the city limits. Large mortars or rocket-type style fireworks, inside residential areas. I mean, they're huge. And some of them don't make it all the way to the upper atmosphere before they explode. They explode at a lower level. Got, houses that got the wood, the shake shingles on there can be engulfed in flames. So I guess I saw something in there that, bottle rockets and things of that nature is something that I believe has been, am I correct in saying that was outlawed or was not supposed to be in use?
That goes with Kansas Fire Prevention Code, yes.
Yeah. So what are we doing to enforce the second side of that's actually being administered? Because where I live at, till 3 o'clock in the morning last year, till 2:30 in the morning the year before, large mortars going up into the sky, bottle rockets, I mean, all night long. And there just doesn't seem to be any way to reel it in.
All that you said are concerns that I have and complaints that we've received. If every single person played by the rules of the ordinance, I don't think it would be nearly as traumatic.
Right.
What our ordinance lays out and specifically prevents the sale of are bottle rockets, which are illegal in Kansas, and basically what we used to call cherry bombs, I think. Anything, basically a quarter stick of dynamite, 25 grains of explosives. The reason for the permit and the time frame for the permit is to give the building and fire department a chance to go out and inspect those seasonal fireworks sellers and basically go in, and if there's anything that is not allowable as a consumer firework, we make them take it out. I think we've come across that in the past, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Come across it. I think in some cases they had to cut some packs open and remove some of the fireworks and sell them. So that's the most reasonable assurance we can give, that if you buy them in a stand that's licensed in the city of Liberal, they should be legal for you to shoot off. I too, when we first passed this, and I forget how many years ago it was, probably 7 or 8 years ago, I was shocked at the size and power of consumer fireworks these
Yeah.
days, They're not like when I was a kid, I guess, is what I'm saying. But they have made great advances too, I'll say this. Even though they are big and they are loud, there are advances in technology in the building of the fireworks. The paper either doesn't burn or burns out before it gets to the ground. There's always going to be malfunctions where they go off too low. But there are a lot of advances in fireworks technology that makes them safer to do. I don't know what to do about the tremendous amount of fireworks that we have around town every year. And as far as enforcing the hours and the days that they shoot them off, it seems like the day the fireworks stands open and they start selling them, we start hearing them. So we'll start hearing them on June 27th, and they'll build to a crescendo probably on the 4th of July. Talking to City Manager Disker, I've likened it to enforcement on this fireworks ordinance is like shooting a BB gun at a freight train. It's almost impossible to stop with the people and staffing that we have to go out and enforce that. I mean, because once they're shot off and you know where they're at, by the time you get there, it's really too late to do anything about it. So it's very difficult. All we can do is just ask the public, plead to the public that we want you to be able to shoot fireworks, but please play within these rules and make it safe and sane for the other half that maybe don't want to shoot fireworks. I said the first couple of years that we legalized fireworks that it basically cut our complaints in half, because I feel like liberals divided probably 50-50 on fireworks. And what it did when we legalized them was the half of people that wanted to shoot them, we don't hear from them as much anymore. We still hear from the half that don't like the noise, that don't like them going all night long, that don't like the trash in the streets, that have lost pets, to anxiety or just basically one suffocated itself in a dog door trying to get away from the fireworks. We see an increase, I think, in strays and runaways during that time. Then, that's not to mention, I will say this, I've never seen the great increase in fires that I thought we'd see when we legalized them. We only had, as a matter of fact, last year was probably the best year we've ever had. Last year, we had 4 fires, I think, that we could probably attribute to fireworks. The years prior to that, last year, 4 fire calls, none involving structures. They were always outside rubbish or vegetation fires. 2023, we had 13 fire calls and 1 was a structure fire. Neighbors caught a roof on fire. And then in 2022, there were 12 fire calls, 1 involved a structure and 1 involved a vehicle. So we've never seen the 30 or 40 or 50 calls that I remember back in the 90s when I was on the county fire department, where we would just get on the trucks and stay on them all day long. But it is what it is. If we could just get the public sentiment to swing our way, to stay within the 8 to 11 p.m., shut them down at 11 or 12. Just don't go till 2 in the morning. A lot of people got to get up and go to work. And by the time we do it for the whole week, they're just worn down and tired.
Yeah, and I'll kind of echo what Matt said. It's like, if the cutoff time is 11 o'clock and it's 11:30, maybe even 12, but when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they're still going off, I would really like to see some enforcement. It's not like they're not hard to find. They're very easy to find, because in my neighborhood, it's just shot after shot after shot after shot till 2:30 in the morning. To me, that's someone who just might as well set up a giant speaker in their driveway and blare music incredibly loud that same amount of time. If that was going on, they would be shut down. So, I mean, I don't mind pushing the boundary a little bit, but when it gets to be that point, it's easy to find, and I think they reasonably should be shut down. And that's, if I get complaints, and I don't get a ton of complaints from people, I get complaints about that, multiples more than anything else. And so I would like to see, at some point in the night, we're saying, okay, if you're having a giant, almost a non-sanctioned fireworks show, which there are multiples around town, that they be shut down, or at least the attempt made.
And that might be the best tactic we can take on the enforcement of getting them out there, because we're just literally with, we staff 6 guys on shift and we're in 3 stations, so
Yeah.
with 11
I
trucks.
mean, I
it's
don't
hard
want to be, I'm not a killjoy, I understand people like that, and that's fine, it's not my thing, but when it goes that late, then basically you're annoying an entire neighborhood at that point.
And it's within reason. I mean, we both live on an area of the town where if I'm hearing it on my side and he's hearing it on his side, I mean, once again, not being a killjoy, I think it's a great idea. I like fireworks just as much as the other, but there needs to be a level where we can turn it down, or at least provide some type of enforcement so that the laundry list of things that you said, pets and, things of that nature that are being affected. I mean, I don't think anybody who lost a pet is upset that there were fireworks. I think they just get upset because it becomes an enormous amount of it. And nobody's trying to take it away from anybody, but there's gotta be a way to say, hey, it's 2 o'clock in the morning and this guy's still going off. What is the penalty for that? But it doesn't, multiple years in a row, doesn't matter, it doesn't ever stop. So I'd definitely like to see, I agree 100% with what we've got here, and I think it's great, but I definitely would like to see some.
I do feel that limiting the days from 3 to 2 is a good compromise for those people who have already come to me and expressing concern about everything that you're talking about. We will sit down with Kelly, Chet, and a few other people to discuss enforcement, because we do have some varying opinions on that, and we need to get all of that on the same page. But I do hear what you're saying, and what we're trying to do is present something to the public that's proactive and that makes sense without taking all the joy out of a holiday.
I'm actually a little bit against going down to the 2 days. I feel like last year at least, as the public gets used to having 3 days worth, we get to the point where we have a lot less the week before. You're still gonna have it, but I feel if we go back down to 2 days, you're gonna have people begin to shoot off outside of that window more often.
And
No.
they are anyway.
Yeah, just not to the level
Yeah.
because,
I kind of feel like it's got a little better last year than the year before, but to me, the problems are that when they're doing it at 1:30, 2 o'clock at night, it's not for the kids, it's for adults evidently, and it is a tough deal because there is probably 50-50 people that want them, people that don't. But here's the way I always have looked at it is, and I don't particularly, I don't pop firecrackers and stuff and make the noise is I felt like we gave them, and this year we're talking it's gonna be 3 days because of the day it falls on, so they're getting 3 days.
no, it'll
either.
be two, it'll be the 4th and the 5th instead of the 3rd,
okay.
4th, 5th.
You're changing the 3rd to the 5th then, okay, I thought maybe you added the day if it was on Friday, but does it not say
That's
3rd,
what I
4th, and
understood
5th?
it. I understood it too, Ron.
3rd, 4th, and 5th? Yeah, I think there's an extra day if it falls on
Just
Friday,
two-
or you
it's
get
just-
rid of the 3rd.
This ordinance makes it 2
Yeah,
days,
yeah.
period. Which
Yeah.
only 2 days if you guys approve this.
Yeah,
And if the 4th falls on a Friday, then they have the 4th and the 5th.
yeah.
The 3rd they can't.
Versus
But-
Any other time it's the 3rd and the
Oh,
4th and not the
Okay.
5th.
To me, it still brings up the question, is the problem 3 days instead of 2 days, or is the problem that people don't respect their neighbors? Because, like I say, to me, I understand, I have long-haired dogs though, so I don't have to bring them in when it's cold too much, but I have to bring them in when the fireworks are going off sometimes, which is, and the thing is the people that have pets and have jobs that they're getting interfered with, we've made that decision, okay, we're putting up with it for 2 or 3 days, but we expect the people that are doing it to do it within the time frame that we've given them to do it. So we're respecting letting them do it, but they're not respecting us cutting off when they should. So to me, do we need to actually look at, looking at the budget a little bit and putting more officers on the street?
Well, the issue though on that part goes back to what Chief said was, once they pop them off, unless we can do enforcement on the one house that continues to do it constantly.
Right.
But if they do it and then go back inside and they come back out and do it, I guess that's another question for Chief Pinkston.
Yeah.
Can you charge them at that point if you can't technically prove that that's the house who did it? Now, you have witnesses who tell you, yes, this is the house doing it, but once your officers get there and there is no active popping of fireworks after midnight, can you do anything about it then?
If you have a complaint, yes, you can.
Yeah, but you don't charge the house either, you gotta charge somebody. So even if it's from that house and there's 6 people in that house, they've gotta be able to articulate that that's the person out of the 6 that did it, right? So, and you could, law enforcement could maybe cite the owner of the house, but whether or not they get a conviction, if that's all they have is he who lives there and.
Fireworks are being popped there?
Probably, if that's all I have to prove a case, I highly doubt Maxwell finds them guilty because we have to identify the person beyond a reasonable doubt that actually lit off that firework. So, and that's always an ongoing issue with this, it's enforcement of it, The best thing to do is be able just to shut them down, like, hey, we're watching you now, you're on our radar, and give that officer the discretion to give that kind of a warning to them, and then granted, they're probably gonna be going to another house, and then another house, and another house, and I don't wanna speak for the chief, but his guys probably have other things to do than to be the firework patrolman for the night, but I'm sure they get lots of those calls and they do respond, but they have other calls they have to address as well.
But Kelly, originally, when you guys did this several years ago, the intent was always that the 3rd and the 4th would be the active days, and the 5th was only reserved for rain. But over
rain day.
time, that developed into the 5th just became a 3rd shooting day.
That's correct.
So I think it just got a little skewed over time, that the 5th was a full-fledged.
Some of the
Day.
additional logic behind that was we'd rather people get them all shot off rather than store them in their house all year long, too.
Good point.
Because that's another issue, is they can sell up to the 4th at what time?
No, they can sell through the.
Sell till midnight on the 4th.
Yeah.
Midnight
by
on the
our
4th.
ordinance, in the state of Kansas, now they've changed that to 18 days, where in Kansas, they'll allow seasonal from the 20th of June to the 7th of July. But our local ordinance can be stricter than that, and our local ordinance says June 27th to July 4th.
But the thing is, most of those will go on to discounts at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And people will buy them all up as much as they can for whatever reason they want to spend that money. And you will still have them popping on Friday. Once again, we can move on a different enforcement part, or not Friday, but on the 5th. So I feel like that's going to be pretty constant. I don't know how you address this issue at the end of the
No,
day.
It's a challenge, because like I said, it is hard to catch them. I haven't gone out and tried. In theory, I've always felt like some of them could be caught, because some of them way abuse it. And maybe that's where you set your line at, is if it's can you get help from the public? But as far as, I know someone around us, I'm only a block and a half away from you, and to be honest with you, it's those ones that just make a lot of noise, because I don't even know if they put out much color or anything. So those are strictly to be annoying, I think, right?
Seems
I
like.
mean, it is an explosive.
Yeah,
It is.
so maybe that's something we look at. Can we ban other ones?
Honestly, in this one, we don't ban anything other than what
The state.
The state.
people from selling, correct? That's really what we banned.
Yeah, the only thing that the state bans is what we ban. That's the only thing that we felt competent enough to decide what's right and what's wrong, you know.
Yeah, you were looking at more for fire, not for nuisance, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we first had these discussions, when we very first did the ordinance, we even talked about nothing that went higher than the roof line of a house, which basically limited to things on the ground effects and fountains and things like that. And I believe, and Chief Pinkston might know, Wichita was like that for a time. But now I think Wichita in the past couple of years has went to basically similar to what we do.
Again, the ordinance is good, though.
No, yeah, without a doubt.
So the flip side to think about too on that is if you start banning individual types of fireworks within town, people that wanna light those will just go somewhere that they are allowed to sell them at, and then bring them back. And then you should make your decision based upon revenue, but then it's a loss of revenue stream with people that are going somewhere else, purchasing them and bringing them back here, which that was discussed before even fireworks were allowed, I think, cause people were just going, south 5 miles and picking up what they wanted to.
We see a tremendous amount of that.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's where all the bottle rockets and stuff are coming from, because I know they're still shooting them off and they're not
You're probably
allowed, but you go right, 5 miles south of town, they sell bottle rockets, so it's not, it's Oklahoma, their law might be
I thought
different.
Oklahoma didn't allow to sell bottle rockets.
I don't know.
Now, artillery shells, yeah, everyone sells those. And they get bigger every year.
Anyway.
And when I was a shift firefighter and a shift captain, we would go out, and at that point, we would just basically go around and seize the fireworks and issue them a receipt for what we seized, but that kind of got to be bad for us, because we literally seized so much, we didn't have a place to store them or a way to destroy them. We started out, we just put a 55-gallon drum of water on the ramp and go soak them in that as we seized them, but eventually we got to where we had 2 or 3 of them out there, got so many. That was back when we didn't allow them in the city, sale or shooting.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance 4635, change to the City of Little Fireworks ordinance.
Second?
Okay. I have a motion by Vice Mayor Landry and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Okay. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, 3-1. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 9, resolution number 2432, adoption of Vision Zero policy.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Tonight, we are looking at resolution number 2432, which is the adoption of the Vision Zero policy. Some context, back in 2022, the City of Garden City submitted a federal grant for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program, which was a planning grant allowing multiple cities and counties along the US Highway 83 corridor to take part in community studies to look at ways to be able to help prevent injury, help prevent issues on our roadways and some of the safety challenges that are common in our communities. And so tonight, we do have Anthony Gallo. He's from Kimley Horn. They're the engineering consultants that did the study, particularly for Liberal. And he's going to present the findings and kind of the next steps and what this allows us to do.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for having me. Excited to present to you all. Talk a little bit about the SS4A program that funded this transportation safety plan, and then what went into the city's plan, and then specifically the recommended safety projects that have come out of it. I think a lot of them probably won't be too much of a surprise for you all. So the SS4A program, this is Safe Streets and Roads for All. It's a new federal grant program that came out of the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed a few years ago. It's focused specifically on transportation safety. As Ms. Moore mentioned, the City of Garden City led an application for a consortium of communities, 6 cities, 6 counties along the US 83 corridor. Got them on this slide here. Each of the communities is getting their own tailored safety action plan, and then there is a joint plan being put together for the entire corridor. Really what these plans are doing, I mean, first and foremost, we want to identify transportation safety projects and policies that we can implement in the city. Some of that is coming out of your comprehensive plan as well, that's also ongoing. Ultimately, this is opening you all up to more funding opportunities, most definitely at the federal level, but also at the state level within KDOT. So within the City of Liberal's plan, again, the grant was awarded in 2023. The plan was worked on in 2024, and we're moving into final adoption for all of our communities and then implementing these plans moving forward. There are 8 required components from the feds that go into these action plans. I want to point mostly to the top right. The safety analysis is a very data-intensive effort, looking at crash data, traffic count data, a number of other field collected data sources, as well as engagement and collaboration. A number of one-on-one stakeholder interviews. There was a safety task force that was made up of stakeholders along the US 83 corridor that had several workshops along the planning process, as well as a public survey that went out to all the communities. And then the output of the plan are recommended policy and process changes, recommended strategies, and specific safety projects for your community. So here's the safety task force. They had 3 meetings or 3 workshops in 2024. There was representation from the City of Liberal on the task force. With regard to public engagement, the public was invited to task force meetings as well. The in-person summit in Scott City held in June 2024. We did get some attendance from the public. And then we had an online comment map that received around 300 comments from across the corridor. Key themes specifically for the City of Liberal, this first bullet should say city, but about half of respondents do not agree that city streets are safe. Intersections being a major concern, that checks out with the crash data. Reckless and careless driving being concerned. Semi-trucks, that was a common theme along the whole US 83 corridor, and support for widening US 83 to a 4-lane expressway. So crash history, I know from looking at your comp plan that you all have some very similar data in there. This is looking at the most recent 5 years of crash data for the city. I'm going to focus specifically on the 3 columns on the left, our fatal, serious injury, and other injury crashes. Property damage only are your fender bender crashes, which are the overwhelming majority, but really our program is how do we prevent those fatal and injury crashes. As you can see, over 5 years, we still have more than 100 of those types of crashes, so a non-trivial amount of damage happening in this community from traffic crashes. Looking at where those take place in the city limits, most notably Kansas Avenue and the major intersections on Kansas Avenue. And then a good amount also along US 54, Pancake, and a little bit along US 83. But you can definitely see, especially through the downtown, Kansas Avenue sticking out on this map. So safety emphasis areas, these are these are common themes that we see in the crash data. So these are crash reports that have been compiled by KDOT. We've got a ton of information on each of these crashes. Overwhelmingly, the biggest issue, common theme that we saw with crashes, the crash data, was intersections in the city limits. Not too uncommon for incorporated cities. Seatbelts were also an issue in a lot of the fatal and serious injury crashes. Roadway departures, a vehicle leaving its lane and being involved in a crash, and people walking and biking, vulnerable road users, also came up. If we look at crashes, again, the crashes I want to focus on, fatal, serious injury, and injury, we see more than 80, close to 90 injury crashes, including 4 fatalities and 13 serious injuries that took place at intersections. We also see a number of crashes involving younger drivers, an occupant protection issue, roadway departure, vulnerable road user. A crash can be associated with several of these, and typically they do. A lot of times you'll see the impaired driver that's speeding, that's not wearing a seat belt, that's involved in a very serious crash. So just keep that in mind looking at this data, but intersections being a priority for the city for transportation safety. So countermeasures, I'm not going to go through this slide in depth, but countermeasures are proven strategies. There's a lot of publications out there with proven strategies from KDOT, from the feds, on how to address some of these emphasis areas. I do want to focus specifically on intersections. A lot of what can be done that I'm seeing here in your community are things like signage and striping and lighting. So more warning signage at intersections, adding lighting, a lot of traffic signals. I know at the 8354 intersection, a couple others, you all have the yellow backplates on those signals. Those are becoming more and more common. They do make a lot of difference, especially at night. Doubling up signage or making signage bigger, making it more obvious that you're coming to a stop sign. Adding those stop bars when you're coming to a stop controlled intersection, especially if it's only side street stop controlled. Adding lighting. A lot of these things are low cost and can be implemented when streets are being resurfaced. But keep that in mind. Striping and signing are ones that I always recommend that are low cost and can make a lot of difference with these intersection crashes. So recommended projects within the city of Liberal. So we went through and we looked at, we pulled a collection of potential safety projects across that entire 12 community study area. We prioritized them based on crash history, but crashes are still pretty rare events. So we also looked at crash risks, so unsafe attributes of a roadway, most notably how much traffic does it carry, and then some other characteristics like how many lanes does it have, how wide is the road, is there a sidewalk, is there a lot of pedestrian activity, things like that. So we have 2 separate scoring for projects based on both crash history and crash risk, and a lot of times those go together, but not necessarily. And then also, did we get feedback from the public or from our one-on-one stakeholder interviews on some of these locations? So the top priority locations for the city of Liberal are shown in red here on this map. And you can see a few of them are along the state-maintained highways along US 83 and along US 54. Those are priority level 1 from our scoring, and then there's another series of locations in orange here that are priority level 2. Some stretches of Kansas Avenue, 15th Street, Western Avenue. A lot of this lines up with that heat map of crashes that I showed on previous slides. And then if we look, I'm going to quickly walk through the individual projects that are shown in red here, the priority level 1 projects. So starting with US 83 in the northeast corner of the city, the curve as it loops around and has that offset intersection with Tucker Road and Road 6 in the county. A couple of fatalities there, a number of serious crashes. It's a tough one with that skew. Certainly, having an intersection on a curve is challenging. We have some recommendations on adding some additional signage and conducting some further study and potentially looking at even a signal there. US 54 and Western Avenue, a number of crashes here. Obviously, a lot of challenges with the railroad being just to the north, and the kind of interesting geometry as you come in over the railroad. So we've got a few short-term recommendations here. Long-term, given that 54 is, it's not a divided highway here, but long-term, looking at potentially having left turn lanes and upgrading those signal heads to have those, to have a flashing yellow arrow, and having a dedicated left turn phase. And then providing pedestrian facilities as well. That came up as well, I know, in the city's bike ped plan that was done a few years ago. US 8354 intersection, for those who aren't aware, this is under study by KDOT. It's in preliminary design for realigning both US 83 and US 54. I know y'all took out the fifth and sixth legs of the intersection a few years ago. Now KDOT's looking at completely relocating the intersection and upgrading that signal and having 54 be a four-lane expressway leaving the city. North Kansas Avenue, north of 15th Street to Tucker Road. So this is near the community college. A lot of pedestrian activity, particularly crossing Kansas Avenue, going from the community college to a lot of the retail and restaurants on the west side. There's a sidewalk that's provided, I believe, mostly on the east side. Student housing, we heard, is continuing to expand. So looking at ways to get pedestrians across Kansas Avenue, make pedestrians more visible, make folks more aware, and potentially slow down traffic on Kansas Avenue in that location. The overpass in front of National Beef, this is obviously a tough one. We did hear a lot from stakeholders about obviously the train stopping and the US 83 backing up whenever there are train delays. But providing pedestrian infrastructure at that crossing, if we can, was a desire that's been echoed, and certainly it's a priority from the safety data that we're seeing. And then US 54, basically along the south side of the city. Lots of stakeholder feedback on this one as well. This is a challenging one with all the semi-trucks and all the driveways. The biggest issue on US 54 that we're seeing is the high number of access points. And KDOT's done a number of studies elsewhere in the state on access management and ways to consolidate some of those driveways. It's certainly a challenge, and happens during parcels getting redeveloped. But the number of driveways, the number of turns coming in and out make US 54 a real challenge on the south side of the city. So next steps. So I do want to make folks aware. I did see that there's a traffic safety committee as well. I saw something in the meeting notes. That's exciting to see. So for folks who aren't aware, there are a number of programs available from both the state and the feds right now for transportation safety. KDOT is going to be probably in the next year or two, they will have a high-risk urban roads program that is tailor-made for communities like yours, with four-lane undivided roadways, with intersection issues, with pedestrian crossing issues. I would say to be on the lookout for that. That represents a pretty good opportunity for getting some funding for a lot of those low-cost improvements here in the city. And the state's going to have some guidance on which locations would score the highest on those. KDOT has a number of other programs out there that can be tailored towards transportation safety. They have a local opportunity guide that's available online. A few other programs mentioned here. And then the program that funded this planning effort, there is a downstream program from it called Implementation, SS4A Implementation, that having a completed and adopted plan allows you to be eligible for that pool of money, and those are larger funding amounts because those can provide money for design and construction. So near-term actions, again, we strongly recommend adopting this plan. Having support from elected officials is highly encouraged, especially for getting federal grant funding. Adopting this plan has no binding commitments to projects or process changes. It's somewhat symbolic in saying, hey, we're committed to improving transportation safety, and we'd like to see eventually get to no fatalities and no serious injuries. And then moving forward beyond that, looking at the funding sources that are out there for transportation safety, what administrative actions can be taken internally, working on what can be done on the education enforcement side as well. And then the program does require the plan to be posted online and some tracking of crash metrics moving forward. So I'll take questions.
So we're looking to adopt this plan, is that right, Scarlett?
Yes.
And then basically this just sets us up for future funding opportunities.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and it is great to work through. It's something that we've shared back and forth. You mentioned our comprehensive plan, and we've sent these plans back and forth between everyone because there is so much that's reflected here. We've talked a lot about North Kansas Avenue and some of the changes that are needed there. This opens us up for that opportunity, gives us an estimated cost. It's a really great tool. That was a very high-level overview of a 127-page document. Thank you. But again, this is something that, allows us to get much further. And I do want to note that this study was funded 80% by federal. KDOT picked up the 20% that was required as a match, and so this is free for us. So,
And it
great
just
data.
formalizes a plan forward,
Yes.
which is great to have with funding and all sorts of things.
Correct.
So thank you.
That last slide just did show it opens up the city for multiple state and federal applications
Correct.
in the future.
Yes, being able, even for the KDOT programs, being able to point to and say that you did this plan is a good check the box item to have.
Well, thank you all for all you've done on this
Yeah.
and getting us in a good
A lot of work.
position.
I read through the whole thing. It was a ton of work, so thank you.
I read
Appreciate
half
you
the
doing
thing. We went through the whole.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2432, adopting of the Vision Zero policy.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes. Moving on to item number 10, the parallel taxiway supplemental agreement.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I come to you this evening, parallel taxiway project for the Crosswind Runway is actually slated to start. We're going to be sending out the bids later this month. I actually did get the design, the final engineer's design report today. I did put in the what it actually looks like, in your packet, but I do have the actual one with what the offset will look like, which is in this packet. The FAA did notice that it did need to have a change that needed to be addressed before we were able to send it out for bid, so that's what this supplemental agreement is for. It addresses the change in the scope and in the plans and the specifications. It also addresses the change in Lochner's compensation. City staff, I recommend that Commission approve the supplemental agreement for additional $20,000 in compensation, and let this mayor or city manager sign the supplemental agreement. This will still be the 90-10%, where the FAA will still do the 90%, and we're only doing the 10%. So it is still part of the main grant for the parallel taxiway. So
I'm assuming this 20,000 is coming out of airport funds?
Yes,
yes,
it is reimbursable.
yes, it is
So our portion we
reimbursable.
definitely have,
So,
and it has the reimbursement
yes,
portion, so
yeah.
we do have the funds for it.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental agreement for an additional $20,000 in compensation To let the mayor or city manager sign the agreement.
Second.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Landry and a second by Commissioner Parsons. Any further discussion? Any from the public? All in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, the federal fund exchange.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, it's time again for our federal funds exchange already, which is a program that we participate in through the Kansas Department of Transportation. It enables us to trade all or a portion of our federal funds, so that we can use those funds for different projects with road and maintenance and construction expenses. And that rate currently is 90% for the reimbursement. We currently have $279,885.19 to be exchanged with, at that 90% rate, will be $251,896.67 for us to use. I have 8 invoices attached that we can submit for reimbursement. And that includes our 2025 crack sealing, chip sealing, and then some other street repairs as well.
I'll make a motion that we approve the submission of the attached federal funds exchange reimbursement request in the amount of $251,896.67.
I second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, CVB Advisory Board appointment.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Michael Dominguez, who's a Phillips 66 employee, has applied for a position on the Convention and Visitors Bureau Board. We currently have an at-large position available. Mr. Dominguez hasn't been on any boards, is interested in becoming more active in our community, which is a great thing. It'd be wonderful if we had more people that want to do that. And so the Convention and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board recommends that Michael Dominguez be appointed to a 4-year term as an at-large representative to the board beginning May 2025 and expiring May 2029. You have his application and his resume.
Well, I'll make that motion. Michael Dominguez be appointed to the Convention Visitors Bureau for 4-year term beginning May 2025.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Any from the public? All in favor? 4-0, motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 13, Liberal Memorial Library appointment, board appointments.
I'm making him go, sorry. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, it's my honor to bring this appointment before you. This is Takumi Rader, works at JCAPS. Before that, he worked a lot with the community in various other capacities. I first met him at Liberal High School when he worked with communities and schools, getting kids connected into our communities. Takumi Rader would serve on the library board from May 2025 to May 2029. He would take over the 2 successful terms from Judy Chance, who has just left our board recently after serving 2 years. Did you want me to, I didn't know if you wanted me to do both together, But the next person we had was Laura Maxwell, who would be serving the unexpired term of Carol Deering, who unfortunately is moving out of town. And the term for Laura Maxwell would be for 1 year to serve out the remainder of Carol Deering's term.
And Takumi, you did apply to run for the city commission 2 years ago, correct?
Yes, I did.
I just want to thank you for continuing to apply for the different boards and try to be active in the community. Okay.
I'll make a motion that, we appoint Takumi Rader for a 4-year term beginning May of 2025, and Laura Maxwell to fill Carol Deering's unexpired term beginning this month and to expire in May of 2026.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? All opposed? 4-0, motion passes.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Moving on to item number 14, waiver of liquidated damages or Tunia Housing Addition.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, in your packets, you will find the agreement between the City of Liberal and OC Quality Custom Homes LLC for the Ortuño Housing Addition. It was signed in July 2024 for a total amount of $1,656,150.32. The bid proposal listed 210 contractual days for completion. However, the signed agreement listed 240 contractual days. And upon speaking with our attorney, the city must abide by the signed agreement over what was approved by the commission. As of May 8th, which was last week when I put this in the packet, our engineers had recorded 22 weather days, which combined with the 240 contractual days equals 262 days. At the time last week, we were currently at 257 total calendar contractual days, but I believe as of today, we are right at 262. The liquidated damages per the contract state that the contractor shall pay owner $800 for each day that expires after such time until the work is completed and ready for final payment. So Edgar Ortuño is here. He has attached a letter that's in your packet that states their reasons why they've had the delay and their request to waive the liquidated damages for you guys to review. And then I felt like once we reached the 262 days, then you guys could vote on a waiver of liquidated damages. I think that happens to be today, but I would like for you to listen to him, read this packet, and I was going to actually put the vote on 5/27. So Edgar, you want to go ahead and address it?
Thank you, Scarlett. Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for your time today. And I just wanted to present to you guys and be grateful for the opportunity that you've given us on this project as we're continuing to progress pretty well, despite of the weather days that we've recently had last week. And we are speaking with Earls Engineering, and we do have some unexpected conflicts that we have had throughout the entire project. One of them is obviously through the weather conditions. Those have been obviously adjusted throughout the contract time. And then another item that we want to discuss is during the change orders. It is given to us that you guys were presented change orders back on November 8th that we began uncovering, and they weren't approved until January 28th, which does include 81 calendar days of time that had to be taken during our contract time to resolve these issues. This really impacted a lot of the time of us progressing how we've originally planned throughout the entire project. I understand that you guys were going through an administration, change. So we are. So we understand, and we understood that, there are certain things that, Earls Engineering had to also redesign, so that way we could all continue progressing pertaining to these change orders. Another item that we do want to talk about is even with the change of administration, there is a bit of coordination issues, by the time that we could actually start the project. It took about 45 calendar days for us to actually receive the tax exempt form and for us to order materials. We've actually received our last item from our material procurement list last week. So usually during that time, you know, that's also a lot of things that could also affect during our contract time. Also, with that being said, talking about liquidated damages, we're still awaiting FEMA or KDHE permits for us to continue building homes. Right now, we're currently building, we finished out all the lots that we could build in terms of the homes itself. So right now, you know, within the RHID and receiving, and for us to continue building, we need to wait all the FEMA and the KDHE permits to continue going and even do anything in terms of filling in on those sites, on those blocks that are currently under the flood zone. So in order to recover, you know, most of the time, we're obviously, we have been putting in a lot of overtime hours. As you can see, when we're pouring these streets right now, when we poured Sinanche 2 weeks ago, we had about 50 field workers during that time just to, you know, compensate for trying to make up some of the time that has been lost during those previous delays. Today, we also, we poured some of the curb along Lincoln. We had about 30 other employees as well. We have been more careful communicating with Pete and with Gary, which is the project manager from Earls Engineering, on, you know, any other delays that we may have in improving our communication on that. And really by seeing within all these delays, if the committee doesn't want to waive the liquidated damages, we do at least want to observe, or I guess, you know, explore the possibility of extending the contract time by 60 calendar days, just to recoup the time that has lost within the previous coordination issues. I'm happy to answer any kind of questions you guys may have, or, you know, fill in any blanks you guys may have.
At this point, how much more time do you think you need on the curve, gutter, sewer, water, and drainage?
So in terms of utilities, we're about 98% done. Today, they were doing the last sewer line, which is sewer line C. We're about to, I think we should be completing that by the end of this week. We should be also, we're planning to pour, if weather allows, the rest of Lincoln and McCray starting on Tuesday, and we should be pretty much done with the entire street by the end of next week, if weather permits. Really, after that, it's just waiting on Lynn Court, which will take perhaps maybe another week. So maybe at most, I'm seeing that we could highly possibly be, you know, between 3 to 4 weeks to complete the entirety of the project.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm kind of curious again, go over the part about the KDHE permit
Correct.
problem. I'm not sure I understand what the issue is there.
That one's just for building homes though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But that, we have.
That's really not an
yeah,
issue as
that-
far
we
as
have a
this
5-year
contract goes,
timeline on
right?
that.
That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
Right. So our position is as the developer of that development, right? In terms of if we want to quote unquote call it liquidated damages per the contract, you know, if we want to look something that to work towards liquidated damages, it'll be towards the process of actually building the homes. So we need to have the street in before we can start building anything, but we're still waiting for, you know, FEMA to give us the permits to even do anything on the site, you know, before we continue going.
And you stated that changes in our administration had created a delay in your process?
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
And
does that
the-
go
and
back?
And the level of communication from you to the city during this process was at the utmost, I'm
Yes,
guessing?
correct.
Every time there was a delay?
Correct. Most of the time when I do have issues, I would try to speak directly with, with the city manager during the time. I understand Scarlett was filling into her role, trying to adjust her role. And then also I would speak with Jose or with Jeff most of the time, in terms if I have any sort of other issues or coordination issues.
So just to add to that, this project wasn't well communicated with city leadership staff over the course of the starting point to where I took over as interim city manager. We have had to put the pieces together. That's when we found the issue with the contract from the 210 to the 240 days, of which I did discuss that with Lynn. But Edgar and I have spoken several times once we ironed all of those things out. I do feel as city manager, it is my role to hold all contractors to their agreements as written and actually as voted on by the commission, which there's a variance in this case. That's why I will put the waiver in front of you guys. I also just want to add one thing. I did speak with Gary Geist this morning regarding the progress, and it has progressed quite a bit since we first started talking about liquidated damages. The project has come along a lot quicker, I feel, in the last 3 weeks or so. I can definitely tell a difference. But overall, I think that they're standing to be under budget about $50,000 to $60,000 from the approved amount of 1.6 million by the time we're finished. I just wanted to make sure that I stated that here today. But putting this information in front of you, I wanted to do that today and then probably follow up with a vote after you had time to process it. Unless you feel like you want to do that today.
Another question, there was an issue with, when we did the change order that actually dropped the cost of the project, but it was for more, a section of the project that wasn't included in the original contract. They're stating here 15 calendar days. Why did the engineer not include project time
Right.
at that time with the change order?
Yeah, and that's a discussion that I had with Gary, because, there was a discussion about, how other projects were being managed, at the time, Marvin was also doing his development. And there was a time there where he did extend the time, by 8 days. And there was a sum that, since we were the developer, that we were gonna be asked if we could waive the liquidated damages in the same way that happened up north as well.
Right, that was another conversation that was kind of brought up. Maybe Lynn, could you say something to that part as far as who the owner is, since they're both the developer and the contractor, even though the city is technically in there as a as a developer as well, because of the funding mechanism.
Well, in regards to, I think your question is when that delay is there, it's very typical for that time to be added to, and I think that's been done in other situations. When I look at this, my first question I was gonna ask was did it actually take 45 calendar days for them to get the tax exempt, Scarlett? Is that a true statement? Do you know?
I cannot confirm that. I do not know. That was very early in the project,
Correct.
yes.
And you weren't even in.
Yes, we were not involved in it at that.
Because, I mean, the contract is the contract. It's the letter of the law. I mean, it's obviously enforceable to the letter of the law. Should he have gotten an extra 15 calendar days when that was done? Probably, but it wasn't done. So he's not entitled to that because there's not a written document that says that. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, and hold it to the letter of the law. But the 45 calendar days, I understand that from a practical sense. If you've got to have that to purchase the items, because that's one of the whole reasons to get involved and do this. And if it was a delay, that's at no fault of him, and it's on the city for that 45 days, which I have no background knowledge on that either. Just in a kind of like a fairness, like, to him, kind of an aspect, it's something that, you can't expect someone to start a development without that tax exempt, because that's one of the whole reasons why they would be involved in this whole project to start with. And if that's part of the delay as well, I mean, that's, to me, just from a fairness standpoint, that should be an allocation to give him consideration for a time period there as well. Again, you don't have to. The contract says what the contract says. And you could hold that to him, and like Scarlett said, this is just an informational type thing for you guys to consider and take it home, and then make a decision in the next meeting that we have, so.
So is there any way to find that documentation from the time that he filed for the tax exemption to the time that it was approved for him? so
Would
that we
think
can
so.
actually see the actual legitimate
Yes.
documentation of the date filed, the date received?
Okay, so I do stand corrected. I did file the tax exemption. It looks like the approval was September 23rd, 2024.
And this contract came into effect
The 15th
July
of
15?
So I would have filed the exemption based on when I was told they were ready to move forward. I typically waited until I was given the directive that the project was moving forward.
And you were given that directive from the previous city manager?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? I say we probably do take this into
There's
consideration.
a lot of moving parts to this thing, and I want to be fair to Ortuño's, but, probably a little more research would be in order, I think.
Yeah. Put it on to the next meeting.
Yeah, I would say.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that's fair.
You okay with that, Matt?
Yeah, I am. I think we need to do a lot of research on it and really take a look at it. I mean, I think there's like Jeff said, there's a lot of moving parts here, and there's some timeline stuff in between.
Correct.
I mean, I guess going forward on somebody who deals with contracts all the time yourself, if it isn't in black and white, it never happened type thing, So I'm definitely gonna have to look at it a lot deeper, for sure.
So just so we're clear, there's a consensus, no action taken, and we'll address it at the next meeting. That'd be a fair statement.
That is correct.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Appreciate your time.
Moving on to item number 15, city staff.
I can start. So we do have a couple of dates I just want to make sure everyone is aware of. So there will be a follow-up KDOT Highway Mobility and Expansion Study meeting. That's a public meeting. What they'll be doing there is presenting the findings of all of their research activity for that study. It's very informative. I was able to see some of it early on. I think a lot of it speaks to our cause and the need for expansion of Highway 54. So that public meeting is going to be next week, May 22nd, from 9 to 11 a.m., and that's at the college in their student union area. So I did want to make sure to highlight that. We would like, again, for the public to come to that, hear the research that's been gathered, and to provide their feedback. The other date that we've been helping to coordinate is for the flood insurance rate map changes that are being proposed. There will be an open house hosted by Kansas Ag Department and their resource for water. That will be Thursday, May 29th from 2 to 6 p.m. and that's at the Girl Scout building. There have been letters sent out, thanks to our building department and others who have helped coordinate that communication. That open house is an opportunity for people who've received a letter to come and just talk about their property, whether it's going into a flood zone, whether it's coming out of the flood zone. They'll be able to go in one-on-one and talk with the experts there about what their options are and what the changes are gonna be. So just wanted to highlight those two dates for everybody.
I was just going to give a reminder out there that our nonprofit applications for the 2026 budget year will be available June 2nd in the finance department downstairs at City Hall in my office. I have all those packets ready to go, and then they will be due back on June 30th, back to me in the office as well. I believe Keely's going to be putting some stuff out while she has, so thank you so much for that. It'll be on our social media, our website, but they can come down and pick it up.
Great, thank you. Brad? Nothing? Any other city staff? Keith?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I just wanted to come before you. There's a situation which has popped up, and I have been receiving a lot of feedback from a lot of different sources. On East 8th Street, there was a fence that was moved into the right-of-way. I can say that I personally spoke and told National they couldn't move their fence into the right-of-way. It has since been moved into the right-of-way with no permission and no permits. I have not taken any enforcement action as of yet, due to the fact, like, that's a big dog to start a fight with. But I have been, like, my planning commission is very unhappy over it. I've received public comments over it. I've received stuff from Traffic Safety Committee. I wanted to kind of come before you all and sit here because I believe if I do try to start some enforcement action, it will come down to my only recourse is to come back before you with a resolution to hire a contractor, tear it down, and send them the bill, which, yeah, so.
With that process, what kind of timeline do we give them before we move forward on that?
There's a set timeline, like, the initial letter would say, hey, you have 15, 25, I could set a time. You have 30 days to respond to us and, tell us what you plan to do, how you plan to correct this. And then past that, it would take another notice that it was coming to commission before you, and then if you approved it, it would take another notice that, hey, you have approved it, you need to do something, or we're going to take enforcement action. But it kind of worries me to, against a company that has kind of done what they want for a while. I didn't want to start enforcement action if I didn't think I could come before you guys and get, if you all felt that we should.
Yeah, I've seen quite a bit stirring on that as well. Do you have a majority of your planning and zoning board that would like to also take action?
Yes. As a consensus, they asked me to send a letter out. And so I could do it from the building official standpoint, the planning and zoning administrator standpoint. There's a lot of names we can put on that letter, but at the end of the day, the recourse for that is if they decide not to play ball, I'm back here with a resolution to say, okay, I'm gonna bulldoze it, hire a contractor to bulldoze it, and we're gonna send them the bill. Then the question is, can we recoup our money from that, or will they just laugh?
I think there should be some diplomacy before you go to that
I agree.
extent. But have we established that there is a proper right-of-way platted?
Technically, it should be their responsibility to prove to the building department that they are staying within their property line. Any other property owner within the city of Liberal, if they want to build a fence, is caused to prove where their property line exists and then build a fence within that.
But have you established that their fence is not legal?
All of the GIS maps and the best existing information I have show it is well within the right of way. Like, it goes straight up to the side of the pavement. There's been concern over if somebody were to try walking to National Beef from the landfill side, they would have to walk out in the lane of traffic to get around it. There's no safe access through there. If a car became damaged and needed to leave the roadway, there's no way for it to leave the roadway. Our snow plows, we're trying to blade it in the winter, and the fence is this far off the white line. So it is causing concern, and I would like enforcement action taken. My planning and zoning board would like enforcement action taken, but at the end of the day, I don't want to go after them if it's not going to go anywhere.
I think that you should establish communication again first, would be my
Seems like to me a
recommendation.
phone call to Sergio
Well,
or somebody out there would be in order before we, but, it's situation, sounds like it needs to be fixed, but give them the courtesy of a phone call or communication ahead of time.
Yeah, I'd like to ask them why they think that they could put it there. I mean, if they have, I want to see what their information is.
I mean, I understand the diplomacy side of it, and I think that first letter technically would still be under the diplomacy, but we've had this conversation with citizens who have built onto that, and you forced them to take it down. I don't know why they get so much more courtesy than we treat everyone else.
Mostly because they have plot plans, citizens have plot plans, and it's established they're not on their property. You just have told me that you haven't established, that you know exactly where the right-of-way is yet, right?
That's correct. I have not
So to
established.
me, we need to establish that before we take action.
Well, the issue
But
still
we
comes
need to
back
start
to
the
no,
conversation that it could be hazardous anyway, but to me, you can't take action, and you can take action with the citizen because you know where the property line is. You haven't established that yet. So we need to establish that before you take action, but we should probably start a conversation
is that,
again of why they think that.
is that something we can establish quickly, or would it require a survey as well?
So it would require a survey.
That we would have to
If a-
pay for if
if a
we were the one
landowner-
establishing
If
it.
a landowner wishes to do that, we require the landowner to pay for the survey and provide it to us or show us the property prints proving prior to moving the fence. None of those steps were followed. If this was Brad's house, before he moved the fence, I would make him show me where the property line is, then get a permit and move the fence, and none of that was followed.
Bottom line is they should have got a permit and they didn't do it.
Yes,
And you'd require anybody else in the city to get a permit before. And if
I
they
mean,
didn't, you would require them to.
We've never
remove the
required
fence.
National Beef to get a permit for anything, so.
Well, that's only in the last 6 years, I believe, that that's happened. They had permits for some of the other things, including the new wastewater facility that they built. But you're correct, we have not required them to pull any permits for the new building that they built recently, which is still, though, against city code. We should have had them pull permits.
Other than they have engineers. But I understand, I mean, it would be probably cumbersome for you to try to inspect everything out there, but I'm kinda on both sides of it. So, but sometimes I don't understand necessarily why some things get to be done, but anyway, I think that if you guys don't mind, I quite often see management out there now. Like this morning, I talked to Sergio. I can tell him that we need to have a conversation and see how he responds from that. And try to open a line of communication first. And maybe even try to get a little bit of input on why they interpreted that they could put it there.
well, I know, like, I don't remember who with National was within the meeting. I went out there with the previous city manager one day. We looked at it in person. I said, no, they would need a permit to move it. I would need a survey. I would need to see the property line showing that they were not putting it in the right of way because we're not gonna let them put it in the right of way. We sat in a meeting in City Hall in the conference room with several, I believe that was back before Jeff Flowers had left, like there were several individuals in there, and I told them, they were talking about the whole project out there, and they talked about that fence, and I told them they could not move it unless they showed me proof of property line and that they were keeping the fence within the property line because we didn't want it in the right of way.
Okay, and I know Caleb was in town today, which is, I don't know if he's here tomorrow, I can find out, because they have meetings, they had a meeting on their parking lot. Well, they have meetings, several different meetings on their projects. I don't know if there's any more this week, most of them were today.
Okay.
So whether he's in town, that would be somebody that would have been in that meeting, him and Dave. But I think we should maybe request to have that conversation, but, there's a possibility that, you know, somebody might have said it was okay. And we don't know.
Well,
But-
if you'd be willing to start that conversation with them, and I'll attend to any, you let me know, I'll attend any meeting I need to, but I
Yeah.
would like, with the amount of public outcry, I think it does need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And- Okay, thank you.
Thank
And definitely set up a meeting between Keith and Scarlett.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Okay, any other city staff? Moving on to item number 16, City Manager Report.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners, we have covered a lot of territory tonight. I have several things to report, but I will try to make it quick. First thing, easiest thing, I did visit with Jane Wire again this afternoon. She's given out 462 spring cleanup coupons. That is great. We have a couple more weeks left for that. Reminder to everybody that this offer ends on May 31st, so we highly encourage everybody to take advantage of that and cleaning up their yards and sprucing them up for the spring. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the entire staff, Steve, all of the people at the golf course. I felt that we had a fantastic ribbon cutting last week. I hope that everybody who didn't get to see that gets out there and enjoys our golf course and the updates, because there's a lot to be proud of there, and I'm very pleased with how that project turned out. And I think that the feedback was great. So thank you so much, Steve and your crew. Very happy to report, with the help of Brad and Bruce and Parks, that we have pet cleanup stations on the way. They actually arrived today. We will be putting them up in multiple parks after repeated requests by residents. I don't know, Keely, how many people have utilized that resident reporting tool? We've had,
Between 20 and 30.
okay, we've had
The last few
a
weeks.
good amount of requests, and several of them that have come through have requested the pet cleanup stations for the parks. And I feel like that's going well. Our people are trained on it now. They're responding accordingly. I mean, Jose had a situation where he put something in and had it resolved within a day or two. So I think people are pleased with that. And this is the result of several of those requests. So I'm happy to report that that is going well. One thing I'm very excited about, I had a meeting this afternoon with some musically inclined people who wish to do something that happens in other communities in this area, having a municipal band. So we are looking at formulating this group of people, musicians anywhere from ages sophomore to adult, who will practice and put together live music in the park 2 to 4 times per summer. We would view them as part-time seasonal employees, but we think that this would add a great amount of quality of life to this community. And, you know, we love Light Park and so many of our parks, and we want them to be utilized. And so we have a group of people who want to do this, who will spearhead it. And I've seen this in Garden City and Dodge City, and it proves to attract large groups of people. And we would do it in the evening, once in June and once in July, and see how that goes. But a lot of people interested, and we are getting together next week for a meeting with those individuals. And I told Angelica, I just created more work for you because we'll have to onboard some more people. But I think that the citizens and residents in this town will enjoy that, and I look forward to that. I do feel in all of the years that I coached, everywhere we went, I felt like that our band was one of the best, and a lot of these individuals will be partaking in this. So I can't wait to put that into motion. So we have several upcoming events. I spoke with Sally before the meeting started. I'm always talking to Keely and all the leadership staff on these, but we definitely have plans for the mural dedication, which if you saw that we poured the concrete on that in Light Park, there's a lot of excitement surrounding that. So we intend to do a ribbon cutting or a big dedication when that is complete, and also the Ruby Red Slipper Slide unveiling. We think that will happen in June. We're not sure exactly when, but when it does happen, we have lots of plans to have our little rec center dancers perform, food. We're going to have an adoption day for the animal shelter, like a Toto's adoption day, and parade all of the dogs across there and try to get them adopted out. And so I think it'll be great fun for everybody. I wanted to report to you guys that I followed up on the solar accounting error that we were concerned about for February of 2025. Do you remember when we saw that increase year over year instead of a decrease? Well, in visiting with Kristen over there at Southern Pioneer, they did find an accounting error to the tune of $24,000, and we'll make that adjustment. So thank you to Kristen for tracking that. It revealed that, and we were able to follow up and recoup. So we'll see that in the next month. So finally, a couple of things. We are pretty pumped about our next agenda. Right after we pushed this agenda out, we had several things kind of take shape and move forward, and we'll have several things upcoming for you guys to take a look at. The first one is we are partnering with Rotary to build a dog park at the animal shelter. This is much needed, and we are going to do this in-house with Brad's crew in between the new and the old building. It's going to be fenced in place there. We are very excited about that. It is much needed. So Rotary will contribute about 1/3 of the funding, and we will do the rest from the 1-cent sales tax crime prevention. And so I know that the staff out there is looking forward to it. Chet has been very much involved from the beginning. We also have plans to install solar lighting at 4 of our parks. If you guys go out there after dark, you will notice that there's just not a lot of lighting. When the weather gets really warm, people like to walk in the evening and when it gets dark. So we are looking at improving the walking paths in Country Club Park, Bluebonnet, Mahuron, and McRae. So we've had a call on that. We're following up. We'll have it in front of you guys on the 27th. We also have plans to get the community dog park ready for you guys as well. I'm constantly asking Steve about it, so I'm sorry, Steve, but I'm excited about it. And I sent you guys some information on what that's going to look like last week. So that's been another thing that people have really requested that we want to follow up on. Also, we have plans to present some outdoor exercise equipment at Light Park. We had torn out some equipment there. It was mainly for children, but we have some space there that we need to fill. It's very great weatherproof equipment, and we're going to get that in front of you guys here in the near future. And then Steve will also be shifting focus to the depot as well. We did receive some grant funding for that. We have some improvements that we need to make there. And then the final thing is splash pads are open. I hope everybody saw that. The kids on the last day of school were out there enjoying it, and it was great weather today, and I received many pictures and people thanking us for that. And so we are happy to have them open for the public. That's everything I have.
Thank you. Great. Moving on to item number 17, items from commissioners. Who wants to start?
I can start because I don't have anything except for I want to thank, I know it's getting hot out, everybody's getting ready for summer, a lot of Parks Department, and we'll have pool and everything in summer, probably a little bit more work for them with the splash pads, but I want to just thank all the staff for their hard work, just lots of stuff happening. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks to the staff, appreciate all you do. I just wanted a couple of things I wanted to shout out. The golf course, the ribbon cutting we had out there was great. There's tons of people out there. Everybody was putting and chipping and eating and had a great time. And then I listened to the radio this morning and the golf course staff. Chris and Jack Cooley were on the radio today. They, explained what's going on and that there's a situation going on at the greens, but they did a great job explaining what's going on, how it's being fixed, and so thanks to those guys. I saw the Facebook stuff on the splash pads and it looks great. I can't wait to see everybody out there having fun on them. Appreciate all the work that was put into the fireworks ordinance, the changes, and those are hard decisions. I would still like to have a little bit further discussion on beefing up enforcement of that at some point in time. I think it's important. Thanks to Scarlett for her work on the community band. It was mentioned to me in a class I was taking. Scott Henderson said, "Hey, there's other communities doing the band thing," and so I mentioned it to Scarlett, and she just ran with it, and so I thanks for what you did, and I think that's going to be a great thing. And just remind everybody to be careful. There's going to be kids running around starting tomorrow, and school's out, so just be careful. But again, thanks again to all you guys for all the work that you do.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, all city staff, fellow commissioners, the community, Scarlett, for your hard work as always, in-depth research. I think the band in the park is going to be a great thing. I had some conversation about some additional ideas today that I thought were pretty cool ideas that maybe we could do. I won't say anything because I would hate to say something and then it not come to fruition, so I will just keep it under my hat. But additional things that would just bring a community together. Presentation on, the stuff for our roads and for safety. I thought that was great, a lot of informative information. I went through 50% of it over the course of the weekend. There was a lot there, 100+ pages of stuff. That was quite a bit. Stuff on the fire department with the fireworks, kind of backing up what Jeff said, just a further discussion to see about some different levels of enforcement, how we can do it. We understand that manpower is something that's critical and you can't have everybody just going out knocking on doors, but at the same time, what can we do as a community, right? Not just as single entities, but as a community together, I think is one of the greatest things. So summertime is here. You can definitely feel it. What did we get? 92, 93 degrees today. It was a scorcher. It felt pretty good. I'm excited about warm weather for sure, I'm not a cold weather guy, so I thought that was nice. And yeah, the kids, they're gonna be everywhere, so let's just slow down a little bit. You know, a lot of people out there with their lowrider trucks zooming up and down the road, so gotta back out of the throttle a little bit. I've seen a lot of that recently, so. Other than that, that's about it. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, as always, thank you to all the staff. I see them out working every day. It's amazing how much work and how far they have to cover. I'd love to know what our square mileage is, just because we have even little parks or little pieces of places where people don't realize it's city land, and they're out there taking care of it, putting out flowers and just beautifying the city. The other part is gonna be, we have roughly 20,000 and probably more people within this community. Everyone has a different opinion on how things should be, wanna be, or need to be. And each one of us could talk to at least 1,000 people, and we would not have reached a quarter of who we represent. So I want to remind everyone that everyone will always have a different opinion of what's necessary for our community. And it really is our job to get out there and talk to as many people as we can to get as much information on where we go to move things forward. That being said, once again, thank you to all the staff and Scarlett for spending a lot of effort in beautifying our community and having a lot of quality of life issues that we're trying to address and move forward. I have not told my kids the splash pads are open. If not, we will be living there for the next summer. Other than that, I hope everyone enjoys what we have to offer in the community. Definitely reach out in that form on the website. Mine was just a hole in the dumpster that was slowly growing. And so no one was ever going to see that until that a full dumpster was lifted up and the bottom just gives out. So if you've seen those kind of issues, that's what this form is for. They came and got a new bottom on that dumpster, and now I don't have to worry about a trash bag just falling out or the whole thing coming out. And I know I've had that complaint from people before. Who do we call? You don't have to call anyone anymore. Just go online, put it on there, and they will respond quickly. Again, hydrants in the alley, any small complaint that you have, that is where this form will definitely help. And our staff is doing amazing jobs of getting that addressed quickly. So, that being said, thank you all. And item number 18, the vouchers.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the vouchers in the amount of $1,201,889.21.
I second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Vice Mayor Landry. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.